Hey guys, welcome to the PvP video for Guild Wars 2. Today I'm bringing you the Warrior, and there's a few things I wanted to say before we get on with the guide. The first thing is, I'm feeling better today. I might sound a bit stuffy and I might be coughing a bit less, but I'm still coughing nonetheless, and so again, more editing to do while I'm coughing. The other thing is, I know I didn't stream this week at all. I was just feeling awful all week long. And I've had a lot of things I needed to get done, so just been like sleeping, doing chores, sleeping, cleaning up, sleeping, you know, that kind of thing. The other thing is I won't be streaming on Saturday this week, but I will be streaming on Sunday, and that reason is TwitchCon is this weekend, Friday and Saturday. We have a whole bunch of stuff coming out, including the highlights of the Druid, specialization for the Ranger, and some other things at PvP balance, which I'm looking forward to. And all that sorts of stuff. So there'll be all day streams pretty much from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. by Arenanet from TwitchCon. So I'll be watching that. Hopefully you all be watching that, and I'll probably put out a video talking about all the different stuff coming out for that after all that stuff comes out. So all exciting things. Yeah, Sunday at 12. Sunday at 12. We'll be at the stream, we'll do some PvP and stuff, and you guys can come and hang out with me. We can talk PvP, we'll go talk about anything else, you know, that happened at TwitchCon. So, but anyway, let's get started on the Warrior. So, today's build for the Warrior, and we'll probably just be going over the Greatsword hammer build. There's not really a name for it besides that, because this is kind of the only build so far that's been kind of viable right now for the Warrior due to all of the other builds going on. It's kind of funny, the Warrior has a way of like adapting to most of the situations that it's put into. It's not like, oh, this build is the Warrior's better build because it's the best. Well, it's best right now for the circumstances, and I think the Warrior's a very adaptive class when it comes to that. Although it isn't easy to play right now because of all the Condi blasting going on, and blind and stuff. But if you play it enough, I've been playing it for the entire week, you'll come to learn to love it as much as I do. I've actually quite enjoyed this build. It's actually one of my favorite builds so far. It's really fun to play. And I never thought I would enjoy Warrior as much as I did. So hopefully that this guide will encourage you to try it out and enjoy it as much as I did. So let's get started with the specialization. So the specializations we have are strength, defense, and discipline. And so this is kind of mainly taking for particular traits that we really want, to help us with not only survival, but actually putting out a lot of damage as well. So for the strength trait line, or specialization, we'll be taking our minor traits here, are reckless dodge, for some, it's just at the end of your dodge roll, you do some damage. It's kind of, it's just kind of there, so if you dodge, you happen to run into someone, it does quite a bit of damage. The other one is building momentum, so your burst skills, when they actually hit, they restore endurance, so this kind of, since we don't have a huge amount of vigor, and we're not really using that many energy sigils, or even at all if you don't want to, this helps with, allowing yourself to dodge a bit more, having that dodges up, and surviving a bit more. The other one is stick and move. This is basically just you get a flat 10% damage increase when your endurance is not full. So if you're dodged a bunch and you hit a bit harder. First adept trait is peak performance. This is important because we're taking one physical skill that's really strong, and physical skills deal more damage based on how much adrenaline you have. So if you have 3 bars of adrenaline, which is the Warrior's mechanic here, these 3 bars, and we'll talk about that during the skills portion of the guide. You'll deal a lot more damage than you would, and your physical skills recharge faster. Physical skills include things like Bull's Rush, I think it's called Kick, and Rampage, which is what we'll be taking as our elite. Our master trait is Forceful Greatsword. I don't know if this is like the meta trait to bring, but I take it because I like having my reduced cooldown on my Greatsword skills, because there's one skill in particular, Whirlwind Attack, which is super useful. It's probably the most important skill you have, because it not only is it's actually a high damage skill, it's a movement skill, and it's an evade, so it helps you kind of move around without, it just gives you an extra evade if you can time it properly. And our Grandmaster is Berserker's Power. This is a really good skill because you gain so much damage boost with this trait line. I mean, you're getting damage boost from your peak performance, and this one is you gain damage boost when you use a burst skill. So after you've used a burst skill, and if you're at 3 bars of adrenaline, you use this skill here, this little F1 skill, you gain this buff called Adrenaline Stage, and it gives you that 20% or 15 or 10% damage boost. And it just gives you that for the duration for all of the rest of your skills. That's really strong, actually, really strong. Our next specialization line is defense. Our minor traits are thick skin, which gives us some extra toughness while our health is above 90%. Adrenal health. This is really good because it gives us some extra healing. Since we'll be using healing signet, it gives us like a bit of a boost in our healing. Every 3 seconds we gain extra healing based on the levels of our adrenaline. So if we have 1 tick, if we have 1 bar, we get 117. If we have 2, we get 234. If we have 3, we get 351. So pretty strong. And spiked armor is our last one. Gain retaliation when we block or struck by critical hit. So just gives us some extra retal. And when we get retaliation, we get bonus toughness. So our adept trait here is dogged march. Incoming movement impeding conditions like immobilized, crippled, chilled have their durations reduced. Actually, that kind of synergizes with our rune that we'll be taking as well. And we gain regeneration when we are affected by one of these conditions. So some extra healing on top of reducing cripple and chill and immobilize, things that will keep us still. You can take, if you're running, just a little bit of a heads up, if you're running shield instead of, or axe shield, which we'll talk about weapons in a bit, if you're running axe shield instead of hammer, you can take shield master, which is also really useful. Helps you get your block up a bit more, and it gives you some might if you block something, but it's up to you. Dodge march is preferred when you're running hammer anyway, so. Our master trait is in Defy Pain. This is basically just one of your normal health threshold save abilities. It activates Endure Pain when below 25% health. If you didn't know what Endure Pain is, it's a stance, and it basically says you take no damage from attacks for 4 seconds. It's also a break stun. However, when you do have Endure Pain on, you are still susceptible to conditions and control effects. So it's not like a complete immunity, but it gives you a big, huge immunity to damage. Our Grandmaster we're taking is Cleansing Ire. Now this is actually quite mandatory. You can't really take anything else. You can't really take anything else besides this because it is our main Condi cleanse. Yes, we're running, if you know what Zerker's stance is, yes, we're taking that, but Cleansing Ire is our main way to remove conditions, which actually is one of the big weaknesses of Warrior right now because blind is so rampant in team fights and everywhere because Mesmer like pump out blind, even like burning guards put out blind. Everything seems put out blind except Warrior right now. So I will talk a bit about this and tips and tricks about what you should do in these instances and things like that. But Cleansing Ire is important. It basically removes a condition for every bar of adrenaline you spend when you use a burst skill. So if you have 3 bars of adrenaline, you remove 3 conditions. So you can see how important that is when it comes to using that. Our last specialization line is Discipline, and our minor traits are Versatile Rage, basically getting adrenaline weapon swap. Our second one is Fast Hands. Our weapon swapping recharges faster, so instead of 9-second recharge, it's 4-second recharge on our weapon swap. And our last minor trait is Versatile Power. We gain might on weapon swap, and burst skills recharge 15% faster, so we'll be using your burst skills more. So instead of like 10-second cooldown, it's 6-second cooldown or whatever. That's really nice to have. This line especially is all about bursting pretty much, and you'll see that in a bit. Our adept trait is Warrior Sprint. This allows us to run faster when wielding a melee weapon, which we are wielding too. And also, we remove Immobilize when we use a movement skill. A movement skills basically mean if your character moves during a skill, that's a movement skill. So, for example, if we go back to Whirlwind Attack that we talked about earlier, it removes Immobilize because it actually moves our character. So that's important because straight up, Immobilize doesn't affect us at all, which is nice. Our master trait is Brawler's Recovery. This removes conditions when you swap weapons, so another condition removal, kind of nice. It gives us extra, since we will be swapping weapons quite frequently. This is a nice trait to bring. The other one you could bring is Destruction of the Empowered, but It's just right now survivability is much more a bit more desired on the warrior, because things are just so condies are just so again rampant condies, especially burning. If you can, this skill can remove 12 stacks of burning, that will save your life. So very important trait to bring. And our Grandmaster is Heightened Focus. This is super strong. And actually, at first I thought it was overpowered, but considering I've been playing the warrior for a bit, I've come to understand how much the warrior struggles a bit. But this is very strong and very important. Heightened Focus. You gain quickness when you strike a foe that is below the health threshold. That health threshold is 50%. So if you can time this, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, if you can time this properly, you can get this quickness and do a lot of damage all at once. The other one you could bring is Burst Mastery. Burst skills deal more damage, restore adrenaline use, but still not as strong as this one, and especially since we're taking a lot more flat damage increases from our strength trait line, so we don't really need for that. So that was our specializations. Probably went pretty quickly. If you want to talk about these in the comments, please do give me feedback. If you say, "Oh, Raz, that's stupid," you know, blah blah blah, give me a comment, hit me up on Twitter, send me a mail, and we'll move on to the PvP build. So our weapons we're bringing are Greatsword and Hammer. We'll talk about Hammer first. Our sigils we're bringing on Hammer are pretty key and very specific. Hydromancy and Leeching. So there's a big reason we're taking Hydromancy and Leeching. Actually, we'll be talking about this also in our tips and tricks section. Hydromancy, let's talk about Leeching first, actually. Leeching gives us a bit more damage when we swap to Hammer. We're swapping to Hammer at very specific times. Doing a certain combo. There's actually a actual combo to do with this whole setup here, where you go through, use a whirlwind attack, use a rush or something, you swap to Hammer, you get the Hydromancy proc, it does a bit of damage and chills, and get a Leeching proc as well. That'll procs at the same time, then you can do all your like knockdown combos with Hammer. So that's kind of what's going on here. On the Greatsword, it's not as specific. You can really fool around with whatever you want on Hammer, or on Greatsword. I take Energy because, you know, I like having Energy on a class that doesn't have Vigor. Even though I take Energy pretty much in everything because it's super strong. And the other one you can take is, I take Air sometimes for like high damage, for just a bit of increased damage. You could take things like, let's see, you could take Generosity if you really wanted to. That could be useful because if you use your whirlwind attack, that is 4 times, so that might proc the Geomancy and get off, so you know, get some condies off. You could take Leeching if you wanted to. You could take sometimes I take sometimes I take Rage for the funsies. And I know some people have been telling me, oh, but Rage is a 30-second cooldown. But yeah, but you know what? Getting a random Rage proc is really fun. It's really funny. So those weapons, our rune we'll be taking is Rune of Hullbrick. And as I said before, this kind of synergizes well with our dodge march, since this reduces the movement impairing conditions like cripple, shield, immobilize by 33%. This reduces condition duration by 20%. So that's more conditions seem to not stick on us very often, at least the cripple and such. Other conditions are a bit less, but this helps us because it's basically all we're taking it for is the condition duration. Because it's a bit might duration, we gain might for certain things, but that's the main reason we take it, is the condition duration. You could take other things like, if you really wanted to go ham, you could take like Pack or Vampirism or something like that, for a bit more damage, a bit more something else. But that's really all you really can take on Warrior, is this one and like 2 other ones, because there's nothing really else that benefits the Warrior as much as this one does. So there you go. And Amulet obviously is Marauder, and we take this bait mainly for the vitality. I mean, look how much health we have. We have 24,000, almost 25,000 health on a Warrior using a Marauder Amulet, so it's really nice. And nothing really else we want. We don't really want to bring any other amulet because this is all about high damage. We're about damage. We're about just doing as much damage as possible in a short amount of time. Kind of sounds like Thief, but in a different way. And we'll be relying on our utilities to keep us alive, and also relying on our weapon skills to keep us alive as well. So that's PvP build. If you have any questions about that, again, give me feedback on that. We'll move on to the weapon skills, actually. I want to talk a little bit about certain weapon skills, not just all of them. And not all of them, just certain ones. We talked about Whirlwind Attack, very useful skill. When it comes to using 100 blades on the Greatsword, the main thing is, this thing is pretty nice if you wanted to use it on a point or something. Just sit on the point in a team fight and just like, woo, you know, just just like use 100 blades and just get hit by a bunch, hit a bunch of things. But generally you don't want to sit down and use this in a fight or something like that. You want to keep moving. Movement is very important to the warrior, especially with this build. Our other weapon, Great Hammer, all about the knockdowns. These two skills, Staggering Blow and Backbreaker, are both knockdowns. This one knocks them back, but also it's pretty much a stun, and then this one knocks them down for 2 seconds. When we talk about the burst skills, so the way this works is adrenaline. I'm sorry if I'm going on a tangent here, but this is kind of important. Adrenaline is built up during fighting. So if you hit something with a skill while you're in combat, every time you hit something, you gain adrenaline, and it's dependent on how many times you hit it, basically. Certain skills can give you passive adrenaline during combat, like Berserker Stance here. There's also an elite signet you can bring that grants adrenaline, but we won't bring that. And then when you get to a certain point, like about the first bar, when the first bar fills up, you can use this adrenaline skill, burst skill, what they're called, and they do certain effects. So for the Greatsword, we have what's called Arcing Slice, and this is a big attack around you. You spin around with your sword and you attack everything around you. You deal more damage to foes with low health, so below 50% you deal increased damage. But you also gain fury based on the levels of adrenaline. So if you have 1 level of adrenaline, you gain 5 seconds of fury. If you have level 2, you get 10 seconds. If you have level 3, you get 15 seconds. So, and you can see all the stuff that's on there. For the hammer, we have something called Earth Shaker. This is a really fun skill to use. Basically, you just jump and you slam your hammer down and stun foes. I mean, it's a really strong skill. It's really fun to use. And the stun duration is based on the level of adrenaline. So if you have 1 level of adrenaline, you get 1 second. If you have level 2, you get 1.5 seconds. If you get level 3, you get 2 seconds. And also to mention, this is a bit technically a movement skill, so it also removes the immobilize from our trait. So there you go. That was the weapon skills. When we go on to the utilities here. So we have our healing skill, which is Healing Signet. Nothing really else. Unfortunately, the warrior suffers from a lack of really nice heals. None of these are really useful. And I guess if you wanted to use Defiant Stance, it's only useful if you're really getting smacked down. If people see that, the only downside to Defiant Stance is that it's very noticeable. People can, if they're smart enough, and usually they are, they see that you've popped it, and they'll just stop attacking you, and you won't gain any health back from using it. Mending, we're not really... The unfortunate thing is warrior's always in the thick of fighting, and so using any of these heals would be really risky because they have long cast times. 1 second is pretty long for a heal, and there's nothing to save them from getting interrupted. So Healing Signet, best choice because it passively heals us. I guess if I had to give you a tip right now, actually, I'll give you a little tip ahead of time. Never use this. Don't ever use Healing Signet. Unless, there's never a time to use Healing Signet. It's just, if you use Healing Signet, people will just see that and they're like, oh, focus him down. He's never going to heal. It's like, oh, shit. So, don't use this. People take advantage of it. And it's also a long cast time, so you can get interrupted anyway. So our utility skills are Berserker Stance, Endure Pain, and Balance Stance. These are all stances because they're very strong. These stances are our most powerful skills we have. There's nothing else you want to take really in this build. Nothing else is very useful, particularly. So let's go over the Berserker Stance. This stance is a stance that gives us adrenaline gain for a short time, so we gain adrenaline over time. But also, the most important part is we are immune to conditions. Conditions cannot be applied to us at all when we have this skill on. It doesn't remove conditions when you use it. It just makes anything that is applied after we activate the skill means that they can't be applied to us. So we're immune to application of conditions while Berserker Stance is running. The other one is Endure Pain. We talked about that earlier. Makes us, we take no damage. So these two kind of go hand in hand. Like this one's like, oh, we can't take damage, but we can take conditions. But this one's like, oh, we can take damage, we can't take conditions. And so the It's a break stun as well, so also remember that. The other useful stance is balance stance. This kind of answers our other quandary with control. So like Endure Pain is immunity from damage. This is immunity from conditions. This is immunity from control. So this one gives us stability for 8 seconds. 5 stacks, and it's also break stun. So these are all very useful. I actually tried to solve a condition problem. So like conditions are very rampant, and I talked about that. I tried running Signet of Stamina for a little bit, because this thing removes 12 conditions when you use it. The unfortunate thing about using this is that it's on a super huge cooldown. 45 seconds is really long for something so useful, for so key when it comes to a fight. So I tried doing that, didn't work out very well, so if you ever try to do that, I'll just give you a little heads up. That's not really that worth it, but if you really want to try it, go ahead. I still recommend balance stance over anything else, because yeah, stability is nice. Also, it helps secure stomps as well, like I talked about a while ago in another build guide about stability and stomping. And our elite skill is Rampage. This thing is amazing. Basically, this turns us into a just this monster. It just like we just become a monster and we just start killing stuff and do so much damage. Basically, it turns us into this giant tank. It increases our health by a significant amount. It also damage is reduced by 25%, gives us pulsing swiftness and stability, and we're immune, basically almost immune to immobilize, cripple, and chill, because it also decreases the duration of immobilize, cripple, and chill. So that synergizes with our dodge march and our hellbreak rune. So basically immobilize to soft CC and CC as well, any type of CC. But the main thing is that this thing gives us so many things. And I'll try to actually activate it. I'll try to go over the skills as quickly as possible. So we have our auto attack, which basically does a huge damage chain, and it dazes on the last one. We have a kick, which pushes them back with a kick, does a lot of damage. We have rush, which is our main damage skill, does a lot of damage. The boulder, which stuns, and the giant leap, which knocks down. So very damaging. A lot of high base damage. That rush has a base damage of 2,000, so that thing hits hard. So if you really want to go in and just like just pound someone in the ground, if your team is setting up a burst, activate Rampage, and just pummel them down into the dust. The other reason you might want to use Rampage, and actually sometimes I think I talked about this Necromancer who uses Plague. Both Plague and Rampage give stability. If you really need to get a stomp off, Rampage, and you don't have balance stance up, use Rampage. I mean, if you really need to get that stomp off, if the fight relies on that stomp getting off, use Rampage. And the same thing for like talking about Plague. If only in that situation would you ever use Rampage as a way to stomp someone. So, or to finish someone off if you really want to just like bleed them out. So that was the utilities and the weapon skills. Hopefully I went over that with enough detail for you guys. If you have any questions, again, comments. So we'll go into the tips and tricks. The unfortunate thing about Warrior, and I think this is kind of the same thing with Necro, there aren't that many useful tips and things. You just kind of have to play Warrior to find out how you play the Warrior, or this Warrior, how you play Greatsword Hammer. But there are some things that you'd like that are important. So again, the first thing I said was that Healing Signet, never use it. I mean, don't ever use it. It's never worth it to use it. It doesn't heal for a bunch. It's 2,000 heal. Not very worth it. Even for the resistance, keep it running. Always have the passive up. Never use it. Never use it. The other tip I have to give is this combo with the hammer. So the way that this works is, specifically, you start off in Greatsword, mainly. Greatsword is kind of your adrenaline builder. You're going to build adrenaline with Greatsword. You're never really going to use Arcing Slice that much as your burst. You're probably going to focus more on Earthshaker, but still, just be aware of how much burst adrenaline you have. You're not really going to spend a whole month. You're not going to like hone in. I'm going to have 3 adrenaline stacks right now. You're never going to say that. You're never going to go, I'm going to build 3 adrenaline stacks. You're going to use adrenaline at any stage. It doesn't matter. You're going to be using it whenever you have it up, for specific moments. You can see moment to moment, because you're gonna always have, pretty much you're always gonna have like one level of adrenaline. Don't ever sit there and say, I'm gonna just like build up my adrenaline. Don't ever do that, because it's gonna take way too much time. You're going to find out that you know, especially because when we swap our weapons, we gain adrenaline on a weapon swap. Because if you have at least half of this level 1 adrenaline, you're going to swap this hammer and you're going to have a full level of adrenaline. You're going to use that Earthshaker, because, you know, that stun is very important to locking down opponents. But besides that, a really neat combo to get used to is to use your starting your Greatsword and go into whirling attack. So you're going to use your whirlwind attack on someone, and as soon as that whirlwind, as your character ends up behind the opponent, you're going to swap to hammer. And what that does is, when you swap to hammer, you'll gain the adrenaline to use Earthshaker. Also, your hydromancy and your leeching will proc, so you'll get a big huge burst, you get a big damage burst, and also apply chill. As soon as you swap to hammer, you're going to activate staggering blow. And after that, you can do a couple things. Sometimes I like to use Earthshaker after that, and sometimes I like to activate backbreaker. So either one of those is good. So just gonna do the CC combo. So staggering blow, a backbreaker, and you can use pierce blow, and then you can use Earthshaker, cripple, or whatever. Do some auto attacks, swap back to Greatsword, and do it all over again. Kind of a rinse repeat kind of thing. But don't worry about it too much. Like, you're gonna say, oh, but Raz, that sounds so like rotation-y. You're just gonna be going back and forth. No. You're gonna spend a lot of time at a Greatsword. Like, Greatsword is one of your main kind of sticks, because for one, it gives you that whirlwind attack. I mean, you're only going to do that combo when you see, like, okay, we want to burst this person, or if you're in a 1v1, that's also very nice. If you're fighting on a point by yourself, mainly you're just going to do as much damage as possible, annoy the opponent, is just put pressure. You're really a pressure machine, because you're just going to non-stop, you're going to be relentless, a juggernaut, just trying to like smash your opponent down. And the key thing about doing that combo is getting behind the opponent. Like, if you're right behind the opponent, if you activate it too soon, it's not going to be as effective. But, you know, just a little bit of practice. The other thing is, when it comes to Rampage, and this is something I kind of learned as I was running a World v World, actually. The unfortunate thing about Rampage is all of its skills are really big, as in it's really easy to see what's coming. So my recommendation for Rampage is a nice little like skill rotation. So what you want to do is, you want to use your rock first. You want to use your boulder first. And what this does, if it hits, it'll set up everything else, because it hits for a lot. So if it hits your opponent, and you want to kind of make it discreet, so you want to like activate Rampage as you're coming into a fight. You want to throw that boulder. If it hits, you use rush, you kick, and then you use the 5, the big like stomp, the seismic, whatever. And that way it just sets up all that burst, and then just can sit there and auto attack, because your auto attacks hit for so much. So that's kind of the trick. The reasoning being is like rush. If you start off with rush, I tried always, like before, I was always like starting off with rush and stuff. People just dodge my stuff, all my attacks, and landing that rock allows you to set up all the other damage, so it's really useful. The other thing is, again, with stomping, balance stance, always use stability. Try to use stability when you stomp, because it's important to get off those stomps, and even more so nowadays, because people seem to be it's just easier to res people with all like the cleaving condi damage. Just make sure you get those stomps off. Also, another tip is, when you go into a fight, use your stances. Don't be afraid to use your stances at the beginning of a fight, because a lot of people front load all of their damage at the beginning. And if you use all this stuff, if you use all of this stuff, you negate all of that damage. And so then that allows you to react and counterattack. And your counterattack is very strong. Especially if you start with Berserker stance, you get adrenaline right away. You'll have all that set up for your combos and things. It helps you out a lot. The last thing I think to say is, in Greatsword's like your main movement stuff. If you need to get away, don't be afraid of getting away. If you need to like run away from 5 people, 4 people, if you're really getting outnumbered, or you really want to get out of that point, or really want to get out of that situation, use your Greatsword skills. Whirlwind attack's very nice because it's an evade. Rush is a long range, like dashing attack. And don't be afraid to use your Earthshaker. I mean, it's a 600 range leap. It's really fast animation. You can use it to get away, and it also removes immobilize. So don't be afraid to use that as well as a getaway. So that was the Greatsword Hammer Warrior. That was really all it was. It's really simple, but it's actually quite difficult to play. I've learned that, you know, Warrior is actually a lot harder to play than I thought it was. At least in this current meta right now. Because the one weakness it has is conditions, and conditions are running, especially burning, is running rampant through PvP, and blind especially. Blind and burning are the big weakness of Warrior, because if we can't land any of our burst skills, conditions just kill us. So make sure you time your burst skills properly as well when it comes to that, so you can get that cleansing ire off, so it can proc and get rid of your conditions. It's just, you know, that's the hardest thing about Warrior. One thing I like to actually also say, and I might say this in the future in my future guides, things that the Warrior can't fight really well. Mesmers right now are impossible to fight, and also Ellies. And I mean, I think everyone's kind of under that general consensus, you know, general understanding that Ezras and Ellies are really strong right now. Burn guards, however, you can fight pretty decently, because they don't blind as much as the other classes, as Ellie and Mesmer. Actually, almost not at all sometimes. So you can actually get away with just like bursting them down. Rampage is really useful against them because you gain that extra health. Oh, one last trick I forgot to even say, and I can't believe I forgot this. When you activate Rampage, if you have Zerker Stance up, activate Zerker Stance as soon as you activate Rampage, because that helps you get, you know, keep those condies off of you, keep blind off. Because blind is your enemy when it comes to Rampage. So if you really want to burst something down that has a lot of blind on it, use Berserker Stance right before Rampage, and that will guarantee that they, you know, they'll count on their blinds, but they won't dodge anything. You'll just like Rampage them. So that was the Warrior build. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope I was descriptive enough for you guys. I hope you enjoy everything. I certainly enjoyed Warrior a whole lot. And I can't wait for Berserker, actually, because I played Berserker during the last beta, and it was really fun. I can't wait to try it again. And yeah, try out the build. Give me feedback. If you have any questions, again, put them in the comments below. Mail me in game, or hit me up on Twitter. Try out the build. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.